you have also entered a time where you are cleared to play. We take you inside the tent and get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. We are proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment. Here comes Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Doctor, the first question we have for you today is what kind of medication have you been taking to get over what happened on Friday night?
Oh God, there's nothing strong enough to get over that disappointment. It was a rough weekend. Yeah.
Did you just cancel all the surgeries? You're like, I'm not coming out of my house.
Cancel surgeries, come off Twitter. Just come out for Mother's Day. That's it. Yeah.
Good for you. No, on the real, help us understand what Andrew Wiggins was going through in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable that he got out there and played as many minutes as he did. I mean, you imagine this injury happened a couple days before. He has no padding like a football player. I know he had some sort of vest on, but, football players who get this injury, they have pads and they've got a harness on underneath it. And he's getting people running right into this rib cartilage. So it's not only getting impacted, but likely it's hurting when he's breathing. So the fact that he was out there trying to contribute really speaks to kind of how tough he is, his pain tolerance. A lot of people, very reasonably so, would have been like, look, I just can't get out there. It's too painful. So the fact that he was limited, yeah, absolutely. He's got a broken rib cartilage. But his ability to absorb contact and try to drive to the lane was pretty remarkable on that game.
Could you see that he was hampered when trying to shoot? I'm looking at the box score, only 2 of 8. He only attempted 3 3-pointers. I know he wasn't that aggressive offensively, but part of it was, I think, a limitation in his ability to raise his arms up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at even some of his 3-point shots, you can see almost like a little hesitation, like, do I want to shoot this? Is this going to hurt? And even just kind of his follow-through looks a little bit more mechanical than the typical fluid motion that he has. So I definitely think the offensive part of his game was impacted. And then as you saw him play more minutes and as he was getting more impact to that region, you can see him even less willing to shoot. He was making the extra pass. So I think, absolutely, I think on the offensive end is where it really impacted him. And he was taking a beating on the defensive end. LeBron was lowering his shoulder into his chest. So, absolutely, clearly it was impacting him during that game.
Doc, we're human beings, so we understand that when people get into their 30s and close to 40, they're going to decline. I'm struggling to figure out, though, how much of a role that actually played. The physical nature of what we're watching, how much of a role that played on the way Klay Thompson played at the end of the year, because he actually had a good year. He had a good regular season. So when you watched him at the end, are we potentially talking about somebody who just had a bad week, or do you see what he's been through the last 3 years as something that's going to be preventative late in seasons?
Yeah, I definitely think that the key for him, I think, is that the summer where he didn't really scrimmage at all. And you look at that one of two ways. I mean, you could look at it, number one, that kept his legs fresh, or number two, it didn't allow him, almost like when you're training for a marathon, not to build that base, where you get to the end of the season, you start breaking down. And part of the reason I think that is when you look at kind of how his shots were falling, things weren't kind of going in the basket and kind of just rolling out and just bad luck. They were short. It definitely looked like the shots were short. So then you think about fatigue. So I think the combination potentially of him not doing stuff over the summer, and even though he's back, he's in his 30s, he's had an Achilles, he's had an ACL, this is going to catch up to him at some point. And if you've played so many minutes in your career, another long run, it's an exhausting King series, his body is compromised to a certain extent. So I think absolutely, I think it's a combination of him being 30, these injuries, and yeah, maybe he had a bad week, but I think the physical part of it definitely played a role.
How much did that every other game factor really determine the way Draymond Green and Steph Curry kind of started to slow down toward the end of that Lakers series?
I think a lot. I think that, typically when you get in your 30s in general, you need those 48 to 72 hours to recover from, exertion. And I think that King series really did. Each game was such a high level. You're really going all out. And then you're going into this Lakers series and you're down and they're exerting again. So they're even, sometimes you have these every other games and maybe one game, it's almost a rest game, even though you're not playing a lot of minutes. They really had to exert themselves a lot. And just the way that they play, the movement, the kind of the constant cutting and pivoting has a lot more exertion than, say, LeBron, who's a master of conserving energy. You could see him pick and choose when he's able to go all out, when he's going to pull up the, pull up the energy. And the Warriors are just moving all the time. So definitely their style of play will fatigue, particularly these older players.
Okay, Doc, my goodness, great NBA season. We appreciate it so much. Start brushing up on Jock Peterson in the injured list. And Brock Purdy apparently is throwing a towel, not throwing in the towel, but throwing a towel. So we'll chat with you about those things coming up next week, okay?
Absolutely. Tons of Sam Darnold talk, I'm sure.
Oh, it's coming. It is coming down the pike. All right, Doc. Thanks, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay, there he goes. Nobody plays basketball tonight. I mean, the Nuggets and Lakers do.
Yeah.
But, whatever. The proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.